Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
New York State signing a law that this is how it's postured in the media, just so you get a kind of a sense of what actually is going on here. It says New York State has enacted strong new legal protections for abortion rights. The new law signed by Governor Cuomo on Tuesday safeguards rights laid out in Roe v. Wade and other court rulings, including a provision permitting late-term abortions when a woman's health is endangered. The health exception is those that follow the pro-life movement know is you know, if you just, it's basically if you don't want the child, that's a health exception. Now here's the issue. If the child's born alive, it's called the Born Alive Protection Act. There were certain protections in place for a child that is actually born during the abortion process. That happens. Here, infanticide could literally take place outside of the womb, and under New York State law, there's nothing that can be done, CC Howell, to stop it.
That's right. The law
or to
repealed.
Prosecute it removes all criminal prosecution.
That's correct. The law actually repealed all the protections of the hospital provisions to provide abortion, physician requirements, ensuring health and safety of the mother and the viable child. And it also takes out the protection that if an aborted baby is born alive, they used to be accorded immediate legal protection. That is now all completely repealed.
So, Jordan, what politically, what has happened? Because I'm going to talk to Abby in a minute about what other states are doing, including Vermont.
This is the radicalized left that we've seen being elected, and then the old left, like Cuomo types. I think Hillary Clinton was at this event trying to be part of this new hard left push by Democrats. I mean, these are Democrat legislators and lawmakers putting these laws into place. I mean, the law even states that an unborn child can no longer be a victim of homicide if he dies while in the womb following an attack on a pregnant mother, because a person refers to the victim of a homicide means it's a human being who has been born and is alive and is outside the womb. It allows non-physicians to perform abortions. I mean, you're talking about protecting women, and you're allowing a midwife to perform some abortions and physician's assistants.
Yeah, I mean, and this is serious surgery. Now, Abby, you're looking right now at another. I mean, this is New York, but Vermont's looking at something just as barbaric.
They are, and some of the language is even more straightforward. It's somewhat hidden and buried in the New York law, but it's very clear in the Vermont law. In fact, it just outright states a fertilized egg, embryo, or fetus shall not have independent rights under Vermont law.
What would happen if the child, Abby, ask both of you this, if the child's born alive, and this happens in abortion procedures, the child's born alive.
There's no protection for that child.
Outside the womb, no protection. You're both convinced of that under the law?
Under this New York law, it absolutely repeals that protection. It used to state that at a live birth, if an aborted baby was actually born alive, they were accorded immediate legal protection. That is now gone. I
think this is a political shift, maybe based on the Kavanaugh hearings, you think, Jordan? They're concerned about the right under Roe?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they're trying to determine how you could protect this kind of gruesome procedures if Roe versus Wade was someday overturned, and it went,
which all that does is return it to the states.
Back to the states, so the states are kind of writing their own abortion laws into place. There's a lot to talk about. There's imagery here to talk about as well. The Freedom Tower spiral was lit up pink. One commentator said looks just like the needle that's used to supply the lethal poison to the living unborn child.
We've got a lot more ahead on this broadcast dealing with this New York law, what's happening also in Vermont, New Mexico, in our battle for life. So we've got a lot more. Sign that petition at aclj.org. We encourage you to call the number that's on your screen or simply go over to aclj.org and stand for life. Back with more in a moment.
The state of New York just passed one of the most barbaric abortion laws in U.S. history, essentially making it legal to abort a baby at any stage of pregnancy up to the moment of birth. It even removes legal protections for babies born alive from botched abortions. Now, other states are trying to do the same thing. At the American Center for Law and Justice, we've assembled our team to fight back. We're preparing to send Freedom of Information Act letters in an effort to expose exactly how involved Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry were in pushing this new law forward. We're looking at every possible way to challenge the New York law. We're mobilizing to ensure that these laws cannot be used to target pro-life doctors and nurses and force them to perform abortions. And we're examining other legal angles as other states look to pass similar laws. You can make a tremendous difference in this fight to protect life. Add your name today to our petition to expose and defeat barbaric abortion laws. Online, aclj.org.
New York proposes and adopts, it passes the Senate in New York, the Reproductive Health Act, passed by the Senate on a vote of 38 to 24, signed by Governor Cuomo this past week. Cece, if I was going to ask you to describe the law in general, I say it's the most barbaric law we passed. What do you think are the aspects of this that, I mean, there's many aspects. And by the way, what we're looking at the ACLJ is first, we're going to do a FOIA request on the state and find out what we know about that. I think that would be very, very important. So we need to know what the story was on that front. What exactly did the state, what went into this? NARAL, Planned Parenthood, what were they thinking? What conversations went back and forth? Then the second aspect of this is then what you can do affirmatively. We're looking at New York state law. We're looking at other legal causes. But when you look at the law, what jumps out at you here is the most problematic, besides the whole process, which is, we fought for those late-term abortion bans on the particular procedure. So now they're being not procedure specific.
Right. So New York, their prior law on abortion, which they had under the penal code, was basically, there was, after 24 weeks, you could not provide an abortion, which is very late. I mean, children are viable now at 20 weeks. So 24 weeks viable, or they could do an abortion. That all is gone. So all the abortion, the penal code, everything on abortion in New York is completely gone. Anything that actually talked about abortion from the public health stance of it needs to be performed in a hospital, it needs to be performed by a physician, they need to ensure the health and safety of the mother and the viable child. If the child is born alive, they are immediately accorded legal protection. All of those laws have been repealed completely. And now even the definition of a person, even for homicide, takes out any unborn child. It is a human being who has been born and is alive. That's the definition of a person. So you can kill an unborn baby at any point, and even if they're born alive, they don't have legal protection.
It used to be that if a pregnant mother was killed, that they could be charged with a double homicide. That's been removed. So really, when you look at what they're focusing on, Abby, is the removal of the personhood of the unborn child. And even if the child's born alive after the abortion, that personhood's not recognized yet either. Right. I mean, it takes away all of those post-delivery protections it's as a result of an abortion.
Yes, it does.
So what jumps out as you as the kind of the worst part of this? I mean, it's all awful.
Well, it is all awful. I will say that the media, several media outlets have pointed to, well, this isn't unrestricted abortions. There is a requirement of, a threat to the health of the mother. Yep. The problem is that the New York law does not define health. And we all know when there is no definition of health, it's anything goes. anything and everything goes. And when you remove the criminal penalties, there's no accountability. So it's up to the doctor and the mother to decide.
Maybe not even the doctor.
Not even the doctor.
Because there don't have to be a doctor to do this surgery procedure, which is unbelievable in and of itself.
Yeah, let's take a call right out of New York. Rachel in New York on line 2. Rachel, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Yes, good afternoon, and thanks for all you guys do.
Thanks.
I'm calling because I think Mr. Cuomo's taken leave of his conscience, and also it's not the woman's right to choose; it's a woman's right to kill. I mean, if I should be so blunt as to say that, because it is. And I think we should send a message in the next voting cycle we say that we don't want people like this in there. Well, we should vote accordingly.
So in New York, Jordan, this bill, you can follow, it's been around, they've been kicking around this bill since 2006.
That's right, but they got the legislators, state legislature there switched. It used to have Republican control in lower houses, and then that changed. And so because of that, they quickly, with the new Democrat majority, seized on getting this passed right through and having a big celebration about it, even lighting up the Freedom Tower in New York pink, the spiral pink, and as one commentator says, it looks like the needle that's used to inject the lethal poison into the unborn baby while they're inside the womb. There's the image of it you could see. And that's New York being proud of that, which is, again, I think that the imagery is barbaric. Even the choices they've made to celebrate the imagery is wrong. And the idea that this is going to protect anyone's health when, in fact, you're going to have non-doctors performing abortion midwives performing abortion procedures, and no way for the state to prosecute those midwives if they do something wrong. So what happens to the woman if they die?
So if the child...
Or what about the woman themselves?
Yeah, what happens there?
The criminal laws have been repealed.
I don't know. I guess if that was a live-born human being,
well, no. What
mother...
if something happened? I guess the negligence laws would still apply, or do they not? The criminal laws do not. If you were criminally negligent, it would. I guess it's too bad. Is there any criminal protection that goes in place in something like this if something were to go wrong or if it was done inappropriate? Nothing?
I don't see anything.
So it looks like they've repealed the criminality aspect of this. Vermont looked similar?
Well, yeah, Vermont even has a provision that would allow the mother to do her own abortion and would prevent any criminal prosecution on that.
Yeah.
It says no state or local law enforcement shall prosecute any individual for inducing, performing, or attempting to induce or perform the individual's own abortion.
So read that first part, because that sounds like any person.
No state or law enforcement shall prosecute any individual for inducing, performing, attempting to induce or perform the individual's own abortion. I mean, the scenario that you have here is you have a mother who, days before delivering her child, decides she doesn't want this baby anymore and attempts to murder the baby herself in her home. Or let's say you have a baby that's born and the mother changes her mind and then later claims that she attempted an abortion on the child. No prosecution whatsoever.
Let's go ahead and take another call. We're taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110.
Yeah, right back to the phones we go. Let's go to Deanna in Massachusetts on line 3. Deanna, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was calling in regards to, the abortion thing. I don't understand how they can, say that they're giving rights to a woman to do whatever they want to their body. Because it's really not their body. It's the baby's body. And if they're going to wait, to the very end and give birth to a child, an infant, and then decide halfway through the birth that they don't, or whatever, halfway through the birth, they kill the baby, then, if you're going that far, there are so many couples out there trying to have babies. Give it up for adoption.
So here's what I think what they've done in New York, and I'll defer to Cece and Abby on this, but I think what they've done in New York is basically taken out any protection of the unborn child. We call it personhood in the law. Is the unborn child, or here even the delivered child, a person under the Constitution? And what New York is saying, and apparently Vermont is, no, they're not.
No, absolutely. Even in their definition, when they define person, it is a human being who has been born and is alive. So that totally takes out the unborn baby, which definitely we all know is a person and has life. But they have to dehumanize this child in order to justify the fact that they have repealed every single law that criminalized abortion and killing an unborn child.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm trying to think of what was it that motivated, I know it's been around for a while, but they've obviously seized the moment here in their view.
Yeah, the Democrats took over the state legislatures in New York. Yeah, surprisingly, Republicans had control of some of those legislative bodies for the last few years. So there's been kind of a balance of power in New York. They're not the most conservative. They weren't the most conservative Republicans in the country, certainly, but they were not going to pass through this kind of abortion language. The moment that changed after this past election cycle, this legislation has been ready to go, as you said, and they passed it. And not only they passed it, they celebrated it as well.
That's the thing, Abby, I don't understand. It's not only they passed it, but the celebration aspect of this, as if it's a monumental, they've done something great. I mean, that's how they're viewing this. And, of course, Planned Parenthood is too.
Yeah, it certainly is. I do know that there were a few, apparently, when the law was passed, literally say, God save us all. So there is a recognition by a minority there.
In the Senate?
In the Senate.
I wonder if we can get audio on any of that. If there was any audio of any of the proceedings, that would be, it's fair to say this is the broadest abortion law in the U.S. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, and the thing is, Planned Parenthood, even when we were up in New York attacking a different bill that was going against crisis pregnancy centers, the city council, which was a majority Democrats, I think there were only 5 Republicans and there were over 50 city councilmen, almost all of those Democrat council members had Planned Parenthood supporting them. Yeah. So you can assume the same in the legislature.
Yeah,
if Planned Parenthood is feeding money to these Democrat or councilmen, they're feeding money to these legislators.
Planned Parenthood tweeted out immediately, "This is huge." I mean, that's what they tweeted. Mm-hmm. So I mean, this is their. I think what's happening in Vermont, what's happening in Mexico, what happened in New York. This is a new strategy, and as you said, it's trying to go around what federal laws may exist because the federal bans are specific to procedures, and say, okay, you could do this, 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 and this, and who's going to challenge us and how.
Sign that petition at aclj.org. We encourage you to call the number that's on your screen or simply go over to aclj.org and stand for life. Back with more in a moment.
The state of New York just passed one of the most barbaric abortion laws in U.S. history, essentially making it legal to abort a baby at any stage of pregnancy up to the moment of birth. It even removes legal protections for babies born alive from botched abortions. Now, other states are trying to do the same thing. At the American Center for Law and Justice, we've assembled our team to fight back. We're preparing to send Freedom of Information Act letters in an effort to expose exactly how involved Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry were in pushing this new law forward. We're looking at every possible way to challenge the New York law. We're mobilizing to ensure that these laws cannot be used to target pro-life doctors and nurses and force them to perform abortions. And we're examining other legal angles as other states look to pass similar laws. You can make a tremendous difference in this fight to protect life. Add your name today to our petition to expose and defeat barbaric abortion laws. Online, aclj.org.
New York passes the most comprehensive abortion law in U.S. history. I call it barbaric. Doesn't even require medical. Remember that whole Gosnell thing where he was tried for, all of his procedures that he did and the disgusting nature of it? It removes all those criminal protections that allowed the state of Pennsylvania to bring charges against Gosnell, according to your read of it, Cece. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It repealed the public health care law that required hospitals and physicians and the ensuring health and safety of the mother and the viable child. And then also, if the child was born alive, they were afforded, immediate legal protection. All those things are gone. So they don't care.
As a state prosecutor, of course, you got a state that's controlled by people that are so pro-abortion they can't even be rational here. Right. But Gosnell was charged as an abortionist for violating all of these rules
in Pennsylvania.
Criminally charged. The law in New York removes criminal penalties. You're a DA. You've been a DA,
right? In
addition to a U.S. attorney, removes the criminal penalties. So somebody does something that would normally be a criminal act. What happens to them?
It's no longer a crime. He would be free in New York. He would be free in New York. He would not be imprisoned. He wouldn't have any criminal charges against him. He'd be a free citizen walking around performing his death acts.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take calls.
Jamie Lynn in Buffalo, New York, on line 1. Jamie Lynn, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hey, Jamie Lynn.
Hi, Jay. Thank you guys, and thank you, team, for taking this call. Just a couple quick comments. I'll be quick, but first, Jay, we need you. We, the people in New York, we need you and your team to help us because Cuomo in our state is no longer protecting children, but now supporting murder. And we have already, I've written letters to the president. I have called Cuomo's office. I have Twittered. I've asked him to step down and withdraw from his position because he's no longer protecting children. And we need guidance. We've got a team of people where we're creating a movement because we're against this. And the other thing I want to throw in there is that this snuck up on us. There was no social media about this bill
until after it passed.
Going up.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around since 2006, but no one thought it was going to pass. Then the legislature changed it. Well, let me tell you what we're doing, Jamie Lynn, because this is not as straightforward, just run into court, get it enjoined. It's much more complicated than that. So the first thing we did this weekend was I assembled a team. I think I probably had 8 lawyers on the emails going around, looking at every possible avenue we can come up with legally. Maybe we're going to start with there is, under New York state law, you're allowed to do a Freedom of Information Act request. We're going to start with that, find out how this all transpired and what it means. What was the legislative intent behind this? Because the idea that it removed all of these protections seems to me just absurd. So that's number 1. Number 2, we are looking at every possible way to challenge the law under New York state law. And that is being examined right now as well. So we're looking at all of the avenues, but I'm not going to tell you this is going to be easy. It's an affirmative grant of a right. The revocation, for instance, in Vermont, if they have a conscience clause revocation, that they don't protect the conscience. For instance, in the New York laws, is it clear, Cece, that the conscience clause, the conscience rights of individual practitioners are thrown away as well?
I would say so, because again, it talks about the intent of the legislature. The specific intent of this legislature is to prevent the enforcement of laws or regulations that burden abortion access.
So what they always say is that if you have a particular doctor or pharmacist or nurse that does not want to be involved in it, they are burdening that access.
That's correct.
So now conscience clause rights are thrown out the window.
Yeah, I mean, that is, again, another whole issue here is that not only is this barbaric, but then the healthcare providers, so you're talking about the medical professionals, the doctors, the nurses, and the places like a Catholic hospital or other religiously affiliated hospital that is opposed to performing abortion procedures. If you throw out all those conscience protections, you're throwing out the protections for the facilities themselves and the individuals, so that, again, that their careers could be potentially in jeopardy, depending on how, the law is written in a way where it all depends on how New York wants to take it. So going and revoking licenses, not just for the doctors, but for other providers as well, like the nurses, the nurse practitioners, and other people who would have to be involved in a procedure like this.
All right, New York is not alone in this. The citizens, Andy, we're very close with the Archbishop in New York for the Greek Orthodox Church, your church, and they issued a very, very strong statement.
Yes, the Greek Orthodox Church issued a statement with respect to this so-called Reproductive Health Act, which we have to admit what it does is it allows abortions up to the moment of birth and gives people who are not doctors the right to perform abortions. The Greek Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church, but my church has deplored multiple things. First, the celebratory nature of the atmosphere surrounding this new law.
That was when George was talking about they lighting up the Empire State Building and
World Trade Center pink to commemorate the law as if it represented an advance for women's rights. But no right of any human being should ever be advanced at the expense of another. The state of New York will not have respect for the rights of women until it again restores legal protections. And although it's been hailed as progress, my church, the Orthodox Church, has said that this is not an advance, but a regression, a return to a time of barbarism when the weak were at the mercy of the strong and had no protection from legal structures or governing authorities.
The Catholics have also,
the
Catholic Church has spoken out as well. This is the Bishop of the Diocese of Albany, New York. Here's what he said.
It was a celebration of abortion, which to me is a celebration of death. It's a dehumanization of a whole class of human beings in our society.
Do you view that way, Abby? And Cece, I'll start with you, Abby. It was celebratory in nature. It is a dehumanization of a whole class of human beings in our society.
Absolutely. Science is undisputable on this matter.
Yeah.
A fetus has a heartbeat. They can survive outside the womb at a very early age.
Well, here, if they survive it outside, if they're delivered alive, no protection.
No protection whatsoever.
I mean, people, I want everybody to understand what we're saying, because this happens in abortion procedures. The baby's born alive. Zero protection. Used to have personhood protection.
Right.
Now they don't.
You have to dehumanize them, just like Hitler did with the Jews. You have to dehumanize them. You have to take away any kind of humanity or personhood on that to say it's okay to kill them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, it's horrific. All right, let's take another phone call.
Kelly in California on line 6. Thanks for holding on, Kelly. You're on the air.
Hi. I just want to say, like, I am shocked, but I'm not surprised at the way everything's headed. But as a woman, I feel like, you know, I don't have a right. If I have another human being living inside of me, it's no longer just my body. It is, I'm sharing that body. And I'm like, why aren't we doing laws to prevent pregnancy then? And if people are going to go kill babies, it's just insane.
Here they've done that. I mean, this is, I mean, Andy, it takes away the prosecutor's discretion to go after an abortionist that does something criminal.
No, you can't anymore. Certainly not in New York. I mean, an abortionist, and that is a wide range of people from, anybody can do it, it seems like now. The discretion of the prosecutor to prosecute a person for what is clearly murder is removed.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand the nature of this. Well, that's going to do it for the broadcast this week. Let me encourage you to go over to aclj.org, sign that petition now, and support the work of the ACLJ. You can do that by calling the number on your screen or simply go over to aclj.org. That's aclj.org. Also, pray for our team. We are looking at every possible legal option to challenge these barbaric laws. New York, Vermont, New Mexico. That's the ones that are right now in the sights, but we got to see. And we need your help. Support the work of the ACLJ. Again, the number's on your screen. Sign that petition at aclj.org, and you can support the work of the ACLJ also at aclj.org.
The state of New York just passed one of the most barbaric abortion laws in U.S. history, essentially making it legal to abort a baby at any stage of pregnancy up to the moment of birth. It even removes legal protections for babies born alive from botched abortions. Now, other states are trying to do the same thing. At the American Center for Law and Justice, we've assembled our team to fight back. We're preparing to send Freedom of Information Act letters in an effort to expose exactly how involved Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry were in pushing this new law forward. We're looking at every possible way to challenge the New York law. We're mobilizing to ensure that these laws cannot be used to target pro-life doctors and nurses and force them to perform abortions. And we're examining other legal angles as other states look to pass similar laws. You can make a tremendous difference in this fight to protect life. Add your name today to our petition to expose and defeat barbaric abortion laws. Online, aclj.org.